This week's biggest cyber stories all point to the same hard truth. Attackers are scaling faster than defenders, using automation, stolen tokens, and software supply chains to hit everything from Next.js JavaScript apps and NPM packages to routers, PLCs, and AI tools. And in several of these cases, they didn't even need malware to cause serious damage. Welcome to Threatopia, where we break down real cyber threats, breaches, and the security patterns that actually matter. This is the cybersecurity briefing you can't afford to miss. Streaming from YouTube and all of your favorite podcast platforms, I'm your host, Mike Kramer. I help security leaders build resilient security operations and modernize their defenses to reduce real-world cyber risk without the headaches. Stay with me to the end because one of today's biggest lessons is why identity and software trust have now become bigger attack surfaces than traditional malware. Wearing a green shirt today, so hopefully it doesn't interfere with the green screen. We'll find out the hard way. Today was a t-shirt and jeans kind of day. Had a rough couple weeks. Been a pause in episodes here, so I apologize for that. Won't happen again. Nobody cares about all the struggles I have. I know everyone's got problems, so we won't talk about that. But upcoming events have over the next few months. The cybersecurity calendar stays busy. Just wrapped up RSA and the SANS conference. Next up, we got Google Cloud Next is scheduled for April 22nd through April 24th in Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay with a strong focus on cloud, AI, infrastructure, and security operations. Black Hat USA returns August 1st through August 6th in Las Vegas in Mandalay Bay, focused on advanced security research, enterprise defense, and offensive tradecraft. Right after that's DEF CON, which is August 6th through August 9th at Las Vegas Convention Center. And it brings together the hacker and research community. Always a good time, much more affordable. And looking a bit further out, Splunk.conf and CribbleCon, held in Chicago, my hometown here, nearest metropolis, are the kinds of events worth watching closely for security data platform, detection engineering, and observability teams as dates finalize for the year. The security tip of the day. So today's tip is to review and reduce your third-party app integrations. I know that's tough. We increase them every week, it seems, but especially in cloud platforms like M365 from Microsoft, GitHub, and Snowflake-connected software as a service tools. Several of today's stories show that attackers increasingly steal tokens or abuse trusted integrations instead of stealing passwords. If an app no longer needs access, revoke it. And for the ones you keep, make sure they only have the minimum permissions required. All right, we got 19 stories to cover today. Here are the most important cybersecurity developments. Cisco Talos says threat cluster UAT 10608 exploited the React to Shell flaw in the Next.js apps to automate credential theft across at least 766 hosts. The attackers used the Nexus listener framework to steal cloud credentials, SSH keys, API tokens, and other secrets from exposed systems. North Korean threat actors tracked as UNC 1069 socially engineered an Axios NPM maintainer and published malicious package versions in a major software supply chain attack. The compromised packages installed a remote access Trojan across multiple operating systems for downstream users who pulled the affected versions. A critical for-to-client EMS 0-day CVE 2026 35616 is being actively exploited and can let unauthenticated attackers run code or commands remotely. Fortinet has already issued emergency hotfixes and is urging immediate patching. Device code phishing attacks abusing the OAuth 2.0 device authorization flow have surged more than 37 times this year. New phishing kits like evil tokens are making token theft easier by tricking victims into entering real device codes on legitimate login pages. Almost said packages. The FBI says Americans lost nearly $21 billion to cyber-enabled crime in a record-breaking year. Investment scams, business email compromise, phishing, extortion, and AI-related scams were among the biggest drivers of loss. A breach at SaaS integrator Anodot allowed shiny hunters to steal authentication tokens and pivot into attacks against Snowflake customers. The group used those stolen tokens for data theft and is now extorting affected organizations to stop data leaks. U.S. agencies are warning that Iranian-linked hackers are targeting internet-exposed Rockwell and Allen Bradley PLCs in critical infrastructure. The attackers are causing operational disruption by extracting project files and manipulating data shown on HMI and SCADA systems. A critical FlowWise vulnerability, CVE 2025-59528, is being actively exploited to run arbitrary JavaScript and access the file system. The flaw affects the custom MCP node in the open source AI workflow platform and has already been seen in the wild. Quick side note on those CVEs, it may sound like a lot of numbers I'm reading off. They are structured as a CVE dash the year they were published and then dash 5-digit code. So if you can quickly then hear it as a year and listen just for the 5-digit code, it makes it a lot easier to absorb when you're listening to that kind of long number. Also, quick plug, of which I get no financial benefit whatsoever. I ordered some t-shirts from True Classic, one of which I'm wearing right now in some kind of package deal that was on mega sale. And I thought it was just all hype and whatnot, but I got to say I'm really happy with the shirts. If you can get them a bulk at a sale discount, very soft and comfortable. They're a cotton poly blend. Get your proper size, and I'd say they're mostly flattering. At least I think so. I like them a lot better than other t-shirts I have. And I feel like I could wear this as an undershirt or as just a t-shirt out in the public on a warm day. So, or when I'm sitting in this room and don't feel like dressing up. So quick plug. Haven't tried any others, so I'm not knocking anything else. And True Classic, if you're out there, want to give me some money for that quick plug, that would be great. Unlike Old Navy and other shirts that people recommend, these have longer sleeves than some of those shirts at like Old Navy and Target. So anyway, authorities and private sector partners disrupted Frost Armada, an APT28 campaign that hijacked DNS settings on small office and home routers to steal Microsoft 365 credentials and OAuth tokens. The attackers redirected authentication traffic through adversary-in-the-middle infrastructure before the operation was taken down. Grafana patched an AI-related flaw that allowed indirect prompt injection to silently leak sensitive data. Researchers showed that hidden instructions embedded in images on attacker-controlled web pages could trigger data exfiltration through Grafana's AI features. At RSAC, or RSA Conference 2026, one of the dominant themes was the growing role of AI in cybersecurity and the shift from human in the loop to human on the loop. More on that in a minute. Conference discussions also emphasized rising supply chain attacks and the ongoing move from ransomware encryption toward pure data theft and extortion. I may have mentioned in the last show that at the RSA conference, every single booth said AI SOC, and there was really, and it got me thinking, what if you want to stand out, you have a booth that says, no AI SOC or anti-AI SOC. Just wonder how that would go over if people would smile and see what you're all about and come by, and that would attract attention, or if people would just, blow it off as, well, you're not up on the latest tech, so I don't want to talk to you. But I have heard of some pushback against pure AI and whatnot, where clients want to pay, if they're paying an MSSP, they want to pay them for humans to review it and just be enabled or decrease the time to detection and vetting out true positives with the assistance of AI rather than pure AI. Let me know your thoughts about all this AI. Is it hype? Is it useful? I think it's like most things, gray area somewhere in the middle where it is quite useful. I use it every day, but as I like to call AI, it's a very impressive pile of crap. So sure, it could be garbage in, garbage out, but it could also be good data in and garbage out. So there's a lot of issues, and there's a whole nother argument to be said about contention. And I think on a macro level, just my personal opinion, that there will be growing contention even with the efficiencies in computing and resources. I think that will just lead to more usage and more contention in the long term. So I would not ever build a company that runs entirely on AI or is completely AI dependent. I like AI enabled with backup procedures where you can operate, all your core operations can run without AI. I think automation is great and can be run local. Cloud AI is specifically my concern. If you have a local one, that's a little bit different. But cloud-based AI, there's just so many dependencies things can crash and burn when that contention rises. Again, just my personal opinion. Let me know your thoughts below. So straight from AI, ironically, or maybe not ironically, a human in the loop is AI does the work, but a human must review, approve important actions before they happen. And a human on the loop, which is a new phrase to me as of today, AI acts more autonomously and a human monitors/supervises and only steps in if needed. That probably depends on what operation or process you're talking about, but I do have some concerns there. An AI-assisted campaign called PRT Scan targeted more than 450 open-source GitHub repositories by abusing a known pull request target workflow misconfiguration. Dozens of repositories were compromised, mainly exposing short-lived GitHub credentials in smaller projects. Team PCP supply chain attacks continue to escalate with breaches tied to organizations including Mercor and the European Commission. Multiple criminal groups including Shiny Hunters, Lapsus $, and Vect are now piling on to monetize stolen credentials, exfiltrated data, and cloud access. Docker fixed the CVE 2026-34040, a high-severity flaw that lets attackers bypass authorization plugins by abusing oversized HTTP request bodies. In the worst case, attackers can create privileged containers with root-level access to the host. Storm 1175 is using both zero-day and recently disclosed vulnerabilities to rapidly deploy Medusa ransomware against internet-facing systems. The group is chaining exploits, stealing credentials, and using legitimate remote management tools to accelerate attacks across healthcare, education, finance, and professional services. Iran-linked actors have launched broad password spraying campaigns against more than 300 Microsoft 365 organizations, while separate pro-Iranian ransomware operations remain active. These attacks combine brute force credential attacks, security tool disruption, and log clearing to maximize impact and reduce visibility. Forest Blizzard, also known as APT28, exploited outdated routers across more than 18,000 networks to hijack DNS and steal Microsoft Office authentication tokens. The campaign shows how attackers can intercept tokens at scale without deploying malware on the victim endpoint. A flaw in Claude code allows security controls to be bypassed when more than 50 subcommands are submitted in a batch. Although a fix reportedly exists, it is not enabled in the public version, leaving users exposed through poisoned or untrusted code repositories. The FBI's 2025 Internet Crime Report says U.S. cyber fraud losses hit $17.7 billion, led by cryptocurrency scams, business email compromise, and AI-enabled fraud. The report shows that cybercrime is not just a technical problem anymore, it is a massive economic problem. The biggest pattern in today's report is that identity is now the primary battleground. We saw attackers stealing passwords, but more importantly, stealing tokens, session material, API keys, SSH keys, and cloud credentials. That shows up in the React to Shell campaign, the device code phishing surge, the Snowflake-related token theft, the APT28 router hijacking operations, and the GitHub supply chain cases. In MITRE attack terms, this is a strong mix of good old T1078 valid accounts, T1550 use alternate authentication material, and T1528 steal application access token. The key point for defenders is that if an attacker gets a valid token, they often bypass traditional detections that are tuned for malware or brute force. The second major theme is software trust collapse through supply chain compromise. Axios on NPM, GitHub workflow abuse, Team PCP's open source package attacks, and even the Claude code issue all point to the same reality. Attackers increasingly target the build process, the maintainers, the CI/CD pipelines, and developer tooling instead of directly attacking hardened production systems. That maps cleanly to T1195 supply chain compromise, and in practice it means organizations need stronger controls around package trust, signed artifacts, repository permissions, dependency review, and privileged automation accounts. If your pipeline implicitly trusts code, packages, or pull requests, you are creating a direct path to production. The third pattern is that internet exposed infrastructure remains a gift to attackers, especially when patching lags. FortiClient EMS, FlowWise, Docker Engine, Medusa ransomware campaigns, and the Iranian targeting of exposed PLCs all reinforce the same lesson. If it is reachable and vulnerable, it will be hit quickly. That is classic T1190 exploit public-facing application, and in some cases it rapidly chains into remote execution, privilege escalation, lateral movement, or even ransomware deployment. For defenders, the playbook is still the same but more urgent than ever. Reduce exposure, aggressively patch edge systems, monitor for abnormal admin activity, restrict remote management tools, and assume that exposed management planes deserve the same protection as domain controllers. And one more strategic point, ransomware is continuing to evolve away from encrypt first towards steal first, extort later. I reported on this a few episodes ago. It's just very scary stuff with all the quantum computing inevitably coming our way. We saw that in the Snowflake linked data theft, the RSA conference discussions, Team PCP related monetization, and Medusa activity. That means backup strategy alone is no longer enough. You still need backups, but you also need identity hardening, egress monitoring, cloud audit logging, privileged access control, and fast credential rotation when compromise is suspected. Today's security concept is social engineering. This is when attackers manipulate people instead of breaking technology. They use trust, urgency, or impersonation to get someone to click, approve, install, or reveal something that they shouldn't. We saw that in today's Axios NPM story, where attackers used convincing fake Slack and Teams messages to trick a maintainer into handing over access that led to a supply chain compromise. The lesson is simple. The human is often the fastest path in, which is why verification habits, out-of-band confirmation, and strong MFA matter just as much as technical controls. Today's message is simple. Attackers are moving faster, quieter, and closer to the authentication layer. So if you're only looking for malware, you're already behind. If you found this briefing valuable, please like the show because it really helps us out. Thanks for listening to Threatopia, and stay safe out there.